When I walked into that bright little cafe at noon, everyone was already smiling like they had prepared a cruel joke. They thought I would laugh at her. They thought I would turn away. But when I saw the woman sitting there, holding her nervous hands under the table, my heart broke for a reason no one expected. If you believe in kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ancient Truth. My name is Rowan Vale, and that day began like any other sunny Thursday in the city. The streets were warm, the windows of the cafe shone with daylight, and my coworkers had insisted they had found the perfect blind date for me. But the moment I entered, I noticed their hidden phones, their fake whispers, and their eyes waiting for humiliation. At the corner table sat a woman named Maribel Noor, wearing a soft blue dress and a smile that trembled before it fully appeared. She was obese, yes, but that was the least important thing about her. What I noticed first was her fear, the way she looked at the door as if expecting pain to walk in wearing a human face. For a few seconds, I understood everything. My so-called friends had not arranged romance. They had arranged entertainment. They wanted me to reject her loudly, to make a scene, to give them a story they could laugh about later. Maribel knew it too. Her eyes were wet, but she held herself with quiet dignity, as if she had survived this kind of cruelty many times and still chosen to show up. I felt anger rise in my chest, but I swallowed it, walked to her table, and gently placed the flowers I had brought beside her cup. Then I smiled and told her she looked beautiful in the sunlight. The room changed. Laughter died before it was born. Someone lowered a phone. Maribel stared at me as if kindness was a language she had forgotten. I sat across from her and asked about her day, not her weight, not the setup, not the cruel audience around us. At first, her answers were small and careful. She worked at a children's library. She loved old poetry, rainy afternoons, and painting birds she had never seen in real life. Slowly, her voice became warmer. The cafe seemed to fade behind us. The joke had failed because I had refused to play my part. But the truth was, I had almost become the kind of man they expected me to be. Years before, I had judged people quickly, hiding my own wounds behind sarcasm. My younger sister, Amara, had once been mocked for her scars after a fire accident, and I remembered how strangers looked at her as if her pain was a public show. She passed away at 19, not because of the scars, but because she lost the will to keep standing in a world that kept pointing. Since then, I promised myself that if I ever saw someone being reduced to a joke, I would not stay silent. As Maribel spoke, her confidence slowly returned, but every now and then she glanced toward the group behind me. I turned and saw my coworkers frozen in shame. One of them, Caden, tried to smile like it was harmless, but there was nothing harmless about making a human being feel unwanted in broad daylight. I stood up, and the cafe became painfully quiet. I did not shout. I simply told them that if they wanted to see something funny, they should look at how small cruelty makes a person. Then I sat back down, and Maribel covered her mouth as tears slipped down her cheeks. That was the moment the room began to cry. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, the way people cry when truth enters a place unexpectedly. An elderly woman near the window wiped her eyes. A waiter looked down at the floor. Even Caden's face lost its arrogance. Maribel whispered that no one had ever defended her like that before. I told her she should never have needed defending for simply existing. Outside, sunlight poured over the street, ordinary and golden, while inside that cafe, something broken began to heal. We spent the next 2 hours talking. She told me how strangers had photographed her in grocery stores, how dates had disappeared after seeing her, how doctors sometimes spoke to her weight before speaking to her heart. But she also told me about the children at the library who ran to hug her, about the stories she read with different voices, about the tiny garden she kept on her balcony. She was not a lesson. She was a whole world. And the more I listened, the more ashamed I felt of every time I had rushed past someone's soul because the outside was easier to judge. When we finally left the cafe, the city was still bright and busy. Maribel walked beside me with her shoulders a little straighter. Before we parted, she said she had almost cancelled because she believed the world had run out of gentle surprises. I told her maybe the world had not run out, maybe it was waiting for people to become them. She smiled then, not nervously, not politely, but fully, and that smile stayed with me long after she disappeared into the afternoon crowd. Weeks passed, and something strange happened. The video my co-workers had meant to use for mockery was never posted by them, but the story spread anyway through the people who had been in the cafe. Caden apologized in front of the office, his voice shaking. Some people called it a small moment, but small moments can become doors. Maribel and I kept meeting, first for coffee, then walks in the park, then visits to the library where children climbed into her stories like they were safe houses. I learned that love does not always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives as a person sitting bravely at a table, expecting rejection, and still choosing hope. Months later, on another bright afternoon, Maribel invited me to a community reading event. She stood before a room full of children and parents, wearing a yellow scarf and holding a book of poems. Her voice filled the hall with warmth. I watched people listen to her, really listen, and I wished every person who had ever laughed at her could see what they had failed to recognize. When the event ended, she found me near the back and said she had finally started painting again. Her newest painting was of a blue bird flying out of a cage, and beneath it she had written one word: enough. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs hope, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Ancient Truth for more stories that remind us to be human. Special request: comment, kindness matters, if you believe no one should be judged before they are truly known. A year after that cruel blind date, I returned to the same cafe with Maribel, not as strangers, not as a joke, but as two people who had found something real in the place where others tried to plant shame. The same window poured sunlight over our table. She reached across and held my hand, and I realized the room had not changed as much as we had. Cruelty had brought us there, but kindness had kept us. And sometimes, the most beautiful love stories begin the moment someone refuses to laugh.